The consistent circle present this audiobook titled The Silent Agenda, Mastering Meetings, Mastering Yourself. Subtitle, How the Conference Room Becomes Your Crucible for Growth. Narrator, Divine Echo. Introduction, The Unlikely Dojo. We have all felt it, that slow, sinking dread as another calendar invitation materializes, its subject line vague, its duration ominously stretching to an hour. We shuffle into a room, physical or virtual, already dividing our attention, our inner monologue a chorus of frustration. This could have been an email. I have real work to do. Why am I here? The meeting, that ubiquitous pillar of professional life, has become synonymous with wasted time, a symbol of organizational dysfunction and personal stagnation. It is the villain of our modern work narrative, and we its resigned, weary victims. But what if we have been telling ourselves the wrong story? This book is founded on a counterintuitive, transformative premise. The meeting room is not your prison. It is your dojo. It is not an obstacle to your growth, but its most frequent and potent training ground. Each gathering is a crucible, a microcosm of your professional and personal development, offering daily, scheduled opportunities to practice the very skills that define exceptional humans and leaders. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Albert Einstein. Our collective frustration with meetings is a problem we created with a mindset of passivity and blame. We point to inefficient processes, dominant colleagues, or unclear agendas, all external factors. The silent agenda invites you to turn the lens inward. The chaos you experience externally often mirrors a latent internal disorder, a lack of clarity, a fear of conflict, an avoidance of decisive action, or an inability to truly listen. The meeting, therefore, becomes a mirror. It shows you, with stark and sometimes uncomfortable clarity, where your own habits of mind are holding you and your team back. But the mirror is only the first step. The dojo is where you train. Mastering the art and science of effective meetings demands the cultivation of discipline, intentionality, empathic connection, and courageous voice. It requires you to show up not as a passive attendee, but as an active architect of outcomes. In doing so, you are not merely improving your calendar. You are engaging in a profound act of self-development. You build the muscle of foresight when you craft a purposeful agenda. You strengthen the nerve of authenticity when you voice a difficult question. You practice the art of synthesis when you weave together disparate threads of conversation. You embody leadership when you facilitate rather than dominate. This book is your guide to this reframing. Over 7 chapters, we will move from internal awareness to external action, from personal discipline to cultural transformation. We will explore how the mechanics of a well-run meeting are inextricably linked to the architecture of a well-lived professional life. The journey begins with a single, powerful shift, seeing the next meeting not as an interruption, but as an invitation. An invitation to listen more deeply, to think more strategically, to contribute more courageously, and to leave not just with action items, but with a strengthened sense of your own capability. The time you spend in meetings is already non-negotiable. The person you become within them is your greatest choice. Let us begin. Chapter 1, The Mirror in the Room. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. The journey to mastering meetings, and in turn, a significant dimension of your own potential, begins not with a new software tool or a stricter agenda template, but with a moment of quiet, uncomfortable honesty. It starts by recognizing that the conference room, the Zoom grid, the weekly stand-up huddle, these are not neutral containers. They are resonant chambers. They amplify and reflect back to you, with startling fidelity, the current state of your internal operating system. Your habits of mind, your unspoken fears, your hidden assumptions, and your practiced coping mechanisms. Before we can architect effective meetings, we must first become astute diagnosticians of our own experience within them. The frustration you feel is not random, it is data. The dynamics you repeatedly witness are not merely how things are done here. They are external manifestations of collective and individual inner worlds. This chapter is an invitation to look into the mirror of your meetings and ask the foundational question: what is the reflection telling me about myself? The diagnosis of frustration. Begin by recalling your most recent, genuinely frustrating meeting. Not the mildly boring one, but the one that left you feeling drained, irritated, or diminished. Now move past the obvious villains, the rambling colleague, the pointless agenda. Instead, trace the thread of your frustration back to its source within you. Did you leave feeling your time was stolen? This may point to an internal lack of personal agency or boundaries. You may have a habit of ceding control of your most irreplaceable resource, time, without a fight, a pattern that likely extends beyond the meeting room. The meeting becomes a theater where your broader reluctance to assert your priorities and values is played out. Did you fume silently while a dominant voice steered the group toward a poor decision? This frustration often masks a fear of conflict or a belief that your voice doesn't matter. Your silence in that room is a rehearsal of a story you tell yourself. It won't make a difference, or I don't want to cause a scene. The meeting mirrors a subconscious avoidance of the necessary friction required for growth, both for the idea and for your own assertiveness. Did you find yourself leading a discussion that felt chaotic and directionless? The external chaos likely reflects an internal lack of clarity or preparation. Perhaps you entered the room without a clear, personal understanding of the desired outcome. Hopping the structure would emerge spontaneously. The meeting becomes a projection of your own unmapped mind, revealing a tendency to navigate by reaction rather than intention. This diagnostic process is not about self-blame. It is about self-awareness. It is the crucial first step in the journey of development. You cannot change what you do not see. The patterns you enact in meetings are microcosms of the patterns you enact in life. The passive attendee often plays a passive role in their own career trajectory. The unfocused facilitator often struggles with personal goals. The conflict avoider often has unaddressed tensions in other relationships. The meeting is merely the stage, where these scripts are performed most regularly. Archetypes in the mirror, recognizing ourselves. To sharpen this diagnostic lens, let's explore common meeting archetypes, not as labels for others, but as potential reflections of our own conditioned behaviors. See if you recognize a shadow of yourself in these mirrors. The ghost, physically present but mentally absent. The ghost is multitasking, their camera off, their contribution a faint "I'm fine with whatever." The mirror says, a habit of disengagement. This archetype reflects a deeper disconnect between one's actions and their impact, a sense of powerlessness that has curdled into apathy. For the ghost, self-development begins with the question, what would need to be true for me to choose to be fully here? The monologue, armed with a thought for every silence, they speak to think, often repeating points or circling back to their own expertise. The mirror says, a fear of silence or a need for validation. The monologue confuses airtime with authority. Their internal world may be anxious, seeking to fill voids with sound to quiet their own uncertainty. Their growth lies in cultivating the discipline of listening, discovering that power can also be found in receptive space. The sniper, quiet for most of the meeting, they then offer a single, sharp, critical comment that deflates the room. The mirror says, unprocessed resentment and a preference for destruction over construction. The sniper's behavior is a form of passive aggression, a reflection of an internal narrative where they are the smartest person in a room of fools, yet lack the will or skill to build a better idea. Their path forward is to transmute criticism into constructive inquiry. The pleaser, eager to agree, quick to volunteer for follow-up without consideration, they seek harmony above all else. The mirror says, an overvaluation of external approval and a weak internal no. The pleaser's meeting behavior reflects a life shaped by the desires of others. Their development requires building the muscle of discernment and the courage of respectful dissent. Learning that true respect is earned through integrity, not acquiescence. The wanderer, they take the group down tangential anecdotes or hypothetical rabbit holes, derailing momentum. The mirror says, a lack of disciplined focus or an unspoken anxiety about the core topic. The wanderer's external digressions mirror an internal difficulty with prioritization and confronting the heart of a matter. Their growth is in developing the mental discipline of relevance and the courage to stay with the discomfort of a difficult core agenda item. Seeing yourself in these archetypes is not an indictment, it is an illumination. It is the making conscious of what was previously unconscious. Each pattern is a strategy you developed, likely with some past success, to navigate the complex social and political landscape of work. But strategies can become prisons. The ghost once protected themselves from a meeting that felt unsafe. The pleaser once earned praise for being a team player. Now, these strategies limit not only the meeting's effectiveness, but your own evolution. From reaction to creation, the power of the pause. The space between the meeting's stimulus and your response is the fertile ground where self-development takes root. Most of us operate on meeting autopilot, our reactions dictated by these ingrained archetypal patterns. The ghost automatically opens their email. The monologue feels a visceral urge to speak into a silence. The sniper's comment is out of their mouth before they've fully thought it through. The first and most powerful practice you can cultivate is the intentional pause. Before you click join, take 60 seconds, close your eyes, breathe, ask yourself 3 questions. What is my purest intention for this gathering? Not the agenda's stated goal, but yours. Is it to truly understand a problem? To advocate for a resource? To strengthen a relationship? Which version of me is needed to fulfill that intention? The calm listener, the bold questioner, the synthesizer, the encourager. What old habit might try to hijack that version of me? The urge to check out, the fear of speaking up. This simple pause is an act of reclamation. It moves you from being a character in a pre-written script, the ghost, the monologue, the pleaser, to being the author of your own role. It is the moment you wipe the dust off the mirror and decide, consciously, what you want to see reflected back. The meeting as a ritual of self-observation. Therefore, reframe every meeting invitation as an invitation to a practice session in self-observation. Your primary metric for the next week should not be, were all action items clear? Though that will come, but how aware was I of my own impulses? Keep a simple journal. After each meeting, note, my dominant feeling during was. The impulse I acted on was, e.g., to interrupt, to zone out, to agree quickly. The impulse I resisted was. One thing I noticed about my own communication style was. This practice builds metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. It is the core skill of emotional intelligence and the bedrock of self-development. You begin to see your triggers, e.g., when David speaks for more than 2 minutes, I feel a hot frustration and become the sniper. You see your gifts, e.g., I noticed when Mario was confused and asked a clarifying question. That's a strength I can use more. The meeting is transformed from a transactional event into a living laboratory for your own growth. The foundation of the future meeting. The work of this chapter is quiet, internal, and profoundly powerful. By courageously looking into the mirror of your meetings, you are doing the essential preparatory work for everything that follows. You cannot design an intentional agenda, Chapter 2, if you are unaware of your own habitual disorganization. You cannot practice deep presence, Chapter 3, if you haven't acknowledged your addiction to distraction. You cannot engage in courageous conversation, Chapter 4, if you haven't confronted your own fear of conflict. The mirror does not lie. It shows you the person you have been with all the accumulated habits and fears. But that is not its only function. A mirror also allows for adjustment. You check your reflection to straighten your tie, to smooth your hair, to ensure your expression aligns with your intent. In the same way, this conscious awareness is the first vital adjustment. It is the moment you see the smudge and choose to wipe it clean. You are no longer a passive character in the meeting story, subject to its fate. You have begun the work of making the unconscious conscious. You have taken the first, definitive step toward mastering the meeting by first seeking to master the self that enters it. The dojo awaits. Your reflection is clear. Now, what will you choose to practice? Chapter 2, The Architect's Mind. A goal without a plan is just a wish. Anton de Saint-Exupéry. If Chapter 1 was an exercise in introspection, a study of the self as seen in the mirror of the meeting, then this chapter is its necessary, outward-facing counterpart. It is the moment we pick up our tools and step onto the construction site. For the internal clarity you've begun to cultivate is inert unless it is given form, structure, and purpose in the external world. The bridge between self-awareness and effective action is intention made manifest. In the realm of meetings, this manifest intention is called an agenda. But we must immediately expand our understanding of this mundane document. An agenda is not a mere list of topics, a perfunctory courtesy emailed 5 minutes before the start time. It is the physical blueprint of a collective future. It is a script for focus, a covenant of respect, and the single most tangible evidence of a leader's or a participant's prepared mind. To architect an agenda with purpose is to practice the disciplines of foresight, empathy, and strategic thinking. It is to move from being a passenger in the vehicle of time to being its navigator. From reaction to creation, the agenda as a declaration. Most meetings fail before they begin because they are called in reaction to a vague unease we should probably talk about, then in service of a specific creation. The reactive meeting is a pooling of anxieties. The architected meeting is a focused beam of energy aimed at a defined point. Thus, the first and most revolutionary principle of the architect's mind is this: every meeting must exist to produce a clearly defined outcome, not to cover a set of topics. A topic is a field, an outcome is a harvest. Discuss Q3 budget is a topic. Decide on a 10% reallocation from marketing to product development for Q3 is an outcome. Update on Project Phoenix is a topic. Secure alignment from leadership on the 3 critical roadblocks for Project Phoenix and assign owners to resolve them is an outcome. This shift from topic thinking to outcome thinking is a profound act of self-development. It forces you to answer the question, what do I truly want to exist after this meeting that does not exist now? This requires deep clarity, a quality of mind that cuts through the fog of daily urgencies. It demands that you think from the future backward, visualizing the end state before planning the journey. This is the same mental muscle used to set and achieve personal goals, to plan a career path, to design a life of purpose. By practicing it in the microcosm of a meeting, you are strengthening it for the macrocosm of your existence. The anatomy of a powerful agenda, the 4 pillars. A powerful agenda is built upon 4 pillars, each representing a dimension of intentional thought. 1. The desired outcome, the keystone. This is the single, non-negotiable core of your meeting. It should be one sentence, beginning with an active verb. Decide, align, create, solve, approve, commit. It must be tangible and verifiable. A good test. At the close of the meeting, could a neutral observer unequivocally state whether this outcome was achieved? This keystone holds the entire structure together. Writing it forces the architect into a state of specificity that banishes vagueness. 2. The participant mandate, the foundation of respect. For every person invited, you must be able to complete this sentence. I need person's name in this meeting because they bring. The blank must be filled with a specific, necessary perspective, expertise, or authority related to the desired outcome. Inviting someone out of politeness or a fear of exclusion is an act of profound disrespect. It wastes their life. Curating the participant list with this ruthless empathy builds a culture of trust and signals that everyone's presence is purposeful. This practice develops your discernment and your courage to make clear-eyed, respectful boundaries. 3. The strategic sequence, the load-bearing wall. The order of items is not arbitrary. It is psychological engineering. The architect's mind understands that human energy and attention are finite resources. The sequence must build momentum toward the keystone. A classic, effective structure is: opening, 5 mins. State the desired outcome. This focuses the room's mental energy from the first moment. Context, 10 mins. Share any critical data or information necessary for decision-making. This is not a data dump. It's the laying of a shared factual foundation. Divergent discussion, 20 mins. Open exploration of ideas, options, and perspectives. This is where creativity and candor are invited. Convergent discussion, 20 mins. The narrowing of options, the debate of trade-offs, moving toward a decision. Decision and action, 10 mins. Explicit confirmation of the outcome, assignment of clear next steps, who, what, by, when. Closing, 5 mins. Recap decisions, actions, and state the next touch point. This provides closure and forward momentum. This structure respects the natural flow of problem-solving and decision-making, training you to think in processes rather than in scattered thoughts. 4. The time alchemy, the discipline of form. Time is the architect's medium. Assigning a specific, finite duration to each segment is not a constraint. It is a creative discipline. It signals the relative importance of each item and forces a necessary rigor onto the discussion. A 15-minute time box for a complex debate demands that participants synthesize and prioritize their thoughts quickly, cutting to the heart of the matter. This practice cultivates your respect for the most non-renewable resource, your own and others' life energy, and builds the muscle of concise, impactful communication. The pre-work principle, shifting consumption to creation. The most transformative architects understand that the true work of a meeting should happen before the meeting. The gathering itself should be for synthesis, debate, and creation, not for passive consumption of information. Therefore, a powerful agenda includes a pre-work section, readings, data analyses, draft documents, or specific questions to ponder. Sending a 3-page analysis to be read beforehand transforms the 30-minute meeting that would have been spent presenting that analysis into 30 minutes spent wrestling with its implications. This principle is a masterclass in empowerment and efficiency. It treats participants as responsible adults capable of preparation. It develops your ability to think ahead, to anticipate the needs of the group, and to design processes that elevate the collective intellect. By shifting consumption outside the shared time, you are actively constructing a culture of preparedness and respect. The architect's mindset, empathy, and blueprint. Ultimately, a brilliant agenda is an act of deep empathy. You are visualizing the experience of each participant. You are asking, walking in, what will they be unsure of? Answer, state the outcome immediately. When might they get bored or confused? Answer, provide clear context and a logical sequence. What will they need to feel safe contributing? Answer, frame questions openly, allocate time for divergent thought. How will they know their time was well spent? Answer, end with clear decisions and actions. This empathetic foresight is the hallmark of a developed mind. It moves you beyond your own needs and goals to consider the internal worlds of others. You are not just building a structure for discussion. You are building a container for human energy, designed to minimize frustration and maximize collective potential. Your first blueprint, a practical exercise. Do not let this remain theoretical. Your next meeting invitation, even if you are not the nominal leader, is your construction site. Draft the keystone. For the next meeting on your calendar, write a 1-sentence desired outcome. If the existing agenda lacks one, draft one for yourself privately. This alone will shift your perspective from passive to active. Analyze the sequence. Look at the agenda items. Do they build logically toward a decision or creation? Could you suggest a more effective order? Practice time alchemy. For each item, write down how much time you believe it should take to reach a resolution. Compare it to the time allotted. This exercise will hone your instinct for the weight of a discussion. Propose pre-work. Is there an item that is purely informational? Draft a brief summary or data point that could be emailed in advance, and propose reallocating that meeting time to a discussion of its consequences. The architect's mind is not a title conferred by a org chart. It is a posture of intentionality you choose to adopt. It is the decision to move from wishing for a better meeting to planning one. Every time you craft an agenda with this level of care, you are doing far more than organizing a business event. You are practicing the disciplines that shape a purposeful life: clarity of intent, strategic sequencing, deep empathy, and a profound respect for the fleeting, precious resource of time. You are building, and in the building, you are being built. The blueprint is in your hands. Let the construction begin. Chapter 3. The Present Participant. The most precious gift we can offer others is our presence. Thich Nhat Hanh. We have, by this point, examined our reflection and crafted our blueprint. We have looked inward and projected outward. Now, the moment of truth arrives. The meeting itself. We step across the threshold. And here, we face the silent, monumental challenge that defines not only the quality of our meetings, but the quality of our lives. Where is our attention? In a world engineered to fragment our focus, the ability to offer sustained, undivided attention is a radical act. It is a superpower growing rarer by the day. The conference room or the Zoom grid has become the ultimate battleground for this precious resource. Notifications flicker on laptops. Smartphones vibrate with the siren call of the urgent but unimportant. Our own minds, trained by a digital age of infinite tabs, dart between the conversation at hand, the unfinished task from earlier, and the looming deadline of tomorrow. To be a present participant is therefore not a passive state of attendance. It is an active, disciplined, and deeply generous practice. It is the decision to meet the present moment and the people within it with the full force of your cognitive and emotional resources. This chapter posits that mastering presence in meetings is the foundational skill upon which all other meeting virtues, and indeed profound self-development, are built. The myth of multitasking and the cost of division. We must first dismantle a dangerous and pervasive myth that we can effectively multitask in a meeting. Cognitive science is unequivocal. The human brain does not parallel process. It toggles rapidly between tasks, incurring a switching cost each time. This cost includes errors, degraded memory, and a significant increase in the time it takes to complete the primary task. When you glance at an email while ostensibly listening, you are not saving time. You are performing a superficial, cognitive version of plate spinning. You are catching the gist of the conversation while missing its texture. The slight hesitation that signals doubt, the shift in tone that indicates passion, the unspoken consensus forming in the room. You are trading the deep work of understanding for the shallow work of scanning. You are, in essence, stealing from the meeting's potential and from your own capacity for insight. The cost is more than intellectual, it is relational and moral. Your divided attention broadcasts a silent, glaring message to every other person present. This is not important. You are not important. It erodes trust, stifles psychological safety, and models a culture of disrespect. Choosing to be fully present, conversely, is a powerful signal of respect. It says, in this moment, this work, and you, matter more than anything else. The pillars of presence, an inner architecture. Cultivating presence is not about willing yourself to focus. It is about constructing an inner architecture that supports focus. This architecture rests on 4 pillars. 1. The ritual of arrival. The present participant does not crash into a meeting from a state of frenzy. They create a ritual buffer. This may be 2 minutes of silence before clicking join, a series of deep breaths, or a conscious mental transition. I am now leaving my previous task. I am arriving here. This ritual closes the mental tabs of previous concerns and opens a single, focused window for the meeting at hand. It is the practice of conscious transition, a skill that prevents the bleed of stress and distraction from one part of your life into another. 2. The discipline of single tasking. This is the non-negotiable law. Close every application and browser tab not explicitly required for the meeting. Place your phone face down and out of reach, or better yet, in another room. If on a video call, use the hide self-view option to stop monitoring your own image. You are not a machine monitoring inputs. You are a human engaging in a shared cognitive act. This external discipline trains the internal muscle of concentration. Each time you resist the itch to check a device, you strengthen your will and deepen your capacity for sustained thought. 3. The practice of deep listening. Listening is not waiting for your turn to speak. Deep listening is an active, immersive pursuit. It involves listening for content, the facts and ideas being shared. Intent, the underlying goal or emotion behind the words. Silence, what is not being said. Where are the pauses, the avoidances? The chorus, the dynamic of the whole group. The alliances, the resistances, the energy flow. To listen deeply is to listen with your whole being, ears, eyes, and intuition. It is to quiet your internal commentary and become a vessel for understanding. This practice cultivates empathy, patience, and the ability to synthesize complex information, skills that are the bedrock of emotional and social intelligence. 4. The art of mindful speaking. Presence governs not only what you take in, but what you put out. Mindful speaking begins with the pause, the sacred space between an impulse to speak and the words themselves. In that pause, you ask, is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Does it serve the desired outcome? This pause prevents reactive speech, curbs the monologue, and transforms your contributions from noise into signal. It ensures your words are an extension of your presence, not a rupture of it. You learn to speak from the conversation, not just into it. The challenge of the virtual space. The virtual meeting amplifies the challenges to presence. The Brady Bunch grid of faces is a paradox, both hypervisual and deeply distancing. The temptation to multitask is geometrically higher. Here, the architect of presence must be even more deliberate. Camera on as covenant. Treat turning your camera on not as an optional courtesy, but as a covenant of engagement. It creates accountability and fosters a vital human connection. It makes you a participant, not a spectator. Curated environment. Minimize visual distractions behind you. This is an act of respect for others, attention, and a cue to your own brain that this is a focused space. Hyperattention to turn-taking. The natural cues of in-person conversation are muted. Be deliberately patient. Use the raise hand function not as a schoolroom formality, but as a tool to manage the collective cognitive load, allowing the current speaker to finish their thought without the anxiety of being interrupted. The ripple effects of a present self. The benefits of this practice extend far beyond more efficient meetings. When you cultivate presence, you are fundamentally rewiring your relationship with your own experience. Reduced anxiety. Presence anchors you in the now. Anxiety is the fear of a future that has not happened, often fueled by ruminating on a past that cannot be changed. A meeting, fully attended to, becomes a manageable, present moment task, not a trigger for catastrophic thinking. Enhanced decision-making. Decisions made from a state of full presence are informed by richer data, not just the words spoken, but the complex human context surrounding them. You perceive nuance, leading to wiser, more sustainable choices. Deeper relationships. People feel felt by a present participant. This builds trust, loyalty, and a collaborative spirit. You become someone others seek out because in your presence they feel heard and valued. The transfer of a calibrated mind. The discipline of focusing for 55 minutes in a meeting trains the mind to focus for an hour on a strategic plan, a creative project, or a meaningful conversation with a loved one. The focused mind is a calm, powerful, and effective mind. Becoming the anchor. In any meeting, energy is contagious. The distracted participant spreads a low-grade virus of apathy. The present participant becomes an anchor, a steadying force. By simply being fully there, you elevate the collective focus. Your deep listening encourages more thoughtful speaking. Your mindful questions cut to the heart of issues. Your calm attention can, subtly, calm a room. This is not about being the loudest or the smartest person present. It is about being the most there. It is about offering the gift that Thich Nhat Hanh describes. In a fractured world, your undivided attention is a profound offering. It is the soil in which trust grows, ideas germinate, and meaningful work flourishes. Begin your practice now, in the very next meeting. Let your first act be the ritual of arrival. Let your sole task be to listen completely. Notice the impulse to divert your attention, and gently, without self-judgment, return to the conversation. You are not just attending a meeting. You are practicing the art of being human, fully engaged in the fleeting, collaborative miracle of the present moment. This is the power of the present participant. Chapter 4. The Courageous Conversation. The absence of conflict is not harmony, it's apathy. Roberto Goizueta. We have learned to see ourselves clearly. We have built our blueprints with intention. We have cultivated the profound discipline of presence. Now we arrive at the heart of the matter, the moment where meetings and people either transform or stagnate, the point of disagreement. This is the crucible. Here, the easy pretense of consensus shatters, and we are faced with a choice, to smooth over or to lean in. For too long, we have mistaken the quiet meeting for the good meeting. We have seen conflict as a sign of failure, a breakdown of decorum or planning. This chapter advocates for a radical reframing. Disagreement, when harnessed with skill and courage, is not the enemy of progress. It is its engine. It is the friction that generates the heat necessary to forge stronger ideas, deeper commitment, and more resilient teams. To avoid conflict is to choose the slow death of apathy over the vibrant, if sometimes uncomfortable, pulse of growth. The courageous conversation is therefore not a disaster to be managed, but a destination to be deliberately designed for. The spectrum of discord, from destructive to generative. Not all conflict is created equal. We must first learn to diagnose its nature. On one end lies destructive conflict, personal, positional, and rooted in ego. It is characterized by ad hominem attacks, defensiveness, and a win-lose mentality. The goal is not to find the best answer, but to prove I am right. This type of conflict erodes trust and leaves psychic wreckage in its wake. On the other end lies generative tension, intellectual, principled, and focused on the problem, not the person. It is a passionate debate about ideas, where the shared goal is to pressure test an option, uncover hidden flaws, and arrive at a more robust solution. This tension is a sign of health, indicating that people care enough to challenge each other, and that psychological safety is high enough to allow it. The role of the developed individual, whether the formal leader or a committed participant, is to vigilantly guide the group's energy from the destructive toward the generative. This requires a new vocabulary and a new set of practices. The architect of safety, building the container. Courageous conversation cannot happen in a fragile container. Fear of retribution, humiliation, or social ostracism will silence dissent and breed artificial harmony. Therefore, before a single disagreeing word is spoken, the container must be built. This is the work of psychological safety, a concept pioneered by Amy Edmondson, which simply means a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. You build this container through deliberate, repeated acts. Frame the work as a learning problem, not an execution problem. From the outset, state, our goal here is to find the best solution, and we won't know what that is unless we rigorously challenge our own assumptions. I need to hear every perspective, especially the dissenting ones. Model fallibility. Leaders and influencers must go first. Say, here's my initial idea, but I know it has blind spots. The first thing I need from you is to poke holes in it. This gives explicit permission for critique. Separate the person from the idea. Institutionalize language like, let's attack the problem, not each other, or okay. Let's put that idea on the whiteboard and all of us try to break it. Use the pronoun it for ideas, not you. Appreciate the dissent. When someone voices a contrary view, respond first with gratitude, not defense. Thank you. That is a critical perspective we haven't considered. Let's dig into that. This container building is an act of leadership and empathy. It requires you to value collective intelligence over your own ego, and to care more about the quality of the outcome than the comfort of the process. The tools of the courageous conversationalist. Once the container is secure, you must equip yourself with tools to navigate the tension productively. These are not tricks, but disciplines of thought and speech. Inquiry over advocacy. When you feel the heat of disagreement rising, consciously shift your mode from advocating for your position to inquiring into others. Replace "here, why you're wrong" with "help me understand how you arrived at that view," or "what data or experience is leading you to that conclusion." This lowers defenses and uncovers the root of the disagreement, which is often a difference in underlying assumptions or information. The "and" stance versus the "but" block. The word "but" is a verbal eraser. It dismisses what came before it. I see your point, but practice using "and." I see your point about the budget risk, and I'm also thinking about the growth opportunity if we're bold. This builds a bridge between ideas, acknowledging complexity and holding multiple truths at once. It moves the conversation from either or to both and. Naming the dynamic. Sometimes the conflict goes underground, manifesting as sarcasm, silence, or side conversations. A powerful, courageous intervention is to name what you see, neutrally and descriptively. I'm noticing we're all agreeing very quickly, and I'm wondering if there are unspoken reservations we should surface. Or it feels like we're talking past each other on this point. Can we pause and each restate what we think the other side's core concern is? This meta-conversation brings the hidden conflict into the light where it can be addressed. Focus on interests, not positions. This is classic negotiation theory, vital for meeting management. A position is a declared solution. We must launch in June. An interest is the underlying need or fear. We need first mover advantage, or we're afraid the team will burn out. When people debate positions, it's a tug of war. When you uncover interests, you often find they are not incompatible, and new, creative solutions that satisfy both can be invented. Ask, what's at stake for you if we don't do X? Or, what's the core need we're all trying to meet here? The synthesis, the alchemical moment. The purpose of courageous conversation is not debate for debate's sake. It is to reach a higher order synthesis, a decision or idea that is superior because it has been tempered by the fire of diverse perspectives. This is the alchemical moment, where the lead of individual opinions is transformed into the gold of collective intelligence. Facilitating this synthesis is a key skill. It involves actively listening for themes. As the debate unfolds, listen for points of connection or shared concern between seemingly opposing views. Reframing the problem. Once interests are clear, restate the challenge in a new way that incorporates the core concerns of all sides. So, if I'm hearing correctly, our real challenge is, how do we capture the market opportunity while protecting our team's sustainability? Proposing integrative solutions. Instead of choosing between option A and option B, ask, is there an option C that captures the strengths of both and minimizes the weaknesses we've identified? This invites creativity and moves the group from a scarcity to an abundance mindset. The personal crucible. Engaging in this way is a profound act of self-development. It forces you to manage your ego. You must detach your self-worth from your ideas. Tolerate discomfort. You learn to sit with the anxiety of not knowing, of being challenged, of ambiguity. Develop intellectual humility. You embrace the reality that you do not have a monopoly on truth. Strengthen your conviction, not your stubbornness. You learn to advocate passionately while remaining open to being persuaded by a better argument. This is the dojo's sparring ring. It is where you practice the martial art of collaborative thinking. The blows are to your assumptions, not your person, and they make your ideas and your character stronger. From courageous conversation to committed action. A meeting that ends with a heated but unresolved debate is exhausting and demoralizing. The courageous conversation must culminate in a clear decision-making moment, which we will explore in Chapter 5. The leader or facilitator must explicitly call for it. We've had a fantastic, robust debate. Thank you. Based on this, we need to decide. Here are the options as I now understand them. The synthesis is then ratified by a decision. By mastering the courageous conversation, you transform the meeting from a place of dreaded conflict into the most dynamic, creative, and ultimately unifying space in the organization. You learn that harmony is not the silence of agreement, but the beautiful, complex chord created by different notes held in tension. You stop fearing the friction and start harnessing it, understanding that it is the very force that propels you and your team forward. Chapter 5, The Decisive Edge. The smallest deed is better than the greatest intention. John Burroughs. We have journeyed through the inner landscape of self-awareness, built our blueprints with care, practiced the discipline of presence, and navigated the generative fires of disagreement. Now, we arrive at the fulcrum upon which all these efforts pivot, the moment of commitment. A meeting, no matter how introspective, well-designed, attentive, or passionate, that concludes without a clear, decisive forward motion is not a meeting. It is a séance. It has conjured the ghosts of ideas and the spirits of debate, only to let them dissipate into the ether, leaving behind a chill of wasted energy and collective cynicism. This chapter addresses the most common and most devastating failure point in organizational life, the gap between talk and action. To possess a decisive edge is to master the art of closing this gap. It is the capability to translate the amorphous energy of discussion into the tangible currency of progress, clear decisions, and accountable next steps. This is where self-development manifests in the material world. It is the point where your internal clarity, courage, and discipline become external reality. Without this edge, all previous work is merely intellectual exercise. The tyranny of the interesting discussion. The enemy of the decisive meeting is not conflict, but vagueness. It is the comforting, seductive trap of the interesting discussion. We leave feeling intellectually stimulated, believing that because words were exchanged, value was created. But stimulation is not a result. A decision is a result. An action is a result. The root of this vagueness often lies in a deeper, personal fear. The fear of being wrong, the fear of limiting options, or the fear of holding others accountable. We subconsciously prefer the open field of discussion to the fenced yard of a decision because the field feels freer, safer. But freedom without direction is merely wandering. The decisive edge is born from the courage to choose a path, knowing it may not be perfect, and the integrity to ensure the first step is taken. The anatomy of a clear decision, beyond consensus. The first pillar of decisiveness is understanding what a decision actually is. In too many meetings, the question, "Are we all in agreement?" is met with silent nods or mumbled assents. This is not a decision, it is a ceasefire. True decisions have three unambiguous components. The chosen path, a crystal clear verbal statement of what has been decided. Not "we'll look into Project Alpha," but "we are allocating the Q3 innovation budget to pursue Project Alpha." This must be recorded in real time, visible to all on a whiteboard, shared doc, or screen. The closed alternatives, explicitly nomming what was not chosen. This means we are not pursuing the beta pilot at this time. This provides psychological closure, prevents zombie ideas from resurrecting in the hallway later, and honors the work of the debate. The why, the decision logic, a brief recap of the primary reason for the choice, tethered to the desired outcome. We are choosing Alpha because its timeline aligns with our strategic window, even though Beta has lower upfront cost. This creates an organizational memory, allowing future decisions to be evaluated against a consistent logic. The pursuit of unanimous consensus is often the killer of decisiveness. The decisive edge understands that a decision is not a referendum. It is a direction. The goal is not necessarily everyone's agreement, but everyone's clarity and commitment to proceed. Techniques like the disagree and commit principle, where participants are allowed to register their dissent, but are then expected to fully support the chosen path, honor individual perspective while enabling collective velocity. The engine of action, the who, what, by, when covenant. A decision without an action plan is a wish. This is where the greatest failure of execution occurs. The transition from decision to action must be systematic, explicit, and owned. The ancient, simple, and profoundly underutilized formula is your most powerful tool. Who, what, by, when. Who, a single, named individual, not the marketing team, but Priya. Collective responsibility is often no responsibility. The named owner is the person accountable for driving that action to completion, even if they enlist others. What, a specific, observable deliverable. Not move the plan forward, but draft the one-page project charter or schedule the kickoff meeting with the tech lead. By when, a specific date and, if relevant, time. Not by next week, but by 5 p.m. this Thursday, October 26th. The act of verbally articulating and visually recording these covenants in the final minutes of the meeting is a ritual of profound importance. It transforms vague goodwill into a social contract. It moves tasks from the abstract realm of the group's to-do list to the concrete territory of an individual's calendar and reputation. The ritual of the closing minute, from discussion to doctrine. The final 5 minutes of a meeting are its most critical. This is where the decisive edge is sharpened and applied. This ritual should be non-negotiable. Review decisions made. The facilitator reads back the clear decision statements. To confirm, we have decided X and Y. Review action items. The facilitator reads each who, what, by, when allowed, directly addressing the owner for confirmation. Priya, you're on for the project charter by Thursday EOD. Confirm. This public confirmation is powerful. State the next touchpoint. Declare when and how progress will be reviewed. We will revisit these actions in our standing sync this Friday. This creates an immediate feedback loop and signals that these commitments matter. Thank the group for their work. Acknowledge the effort, especially if the conversation was difficult. Thank you all for the rigorous debate. The decisiveness we've reached here is a direct result of your engagement. The personal discipline of accountability. Developing a decisive edge is, at its core, the development of personal accountability. It begins with you. Own your what's. When you accept an action item, treat it as a sacred vow. The integrity of the entire system depends on each person doing what they said they would do. Your personal reliability becomes the cornerstone of the team's trust. Follow up gently and firmly. If you are leading, following up on action items is not micromanagement. It is respect for the commitments made. A simple, "Hi Priya, looking forward to seeing that charter later today," reinforces the importance of the covenant. Communicate early if you'll miss. If you cannot meet a by when, the absolute rule is to communicate before the deadline, not after. Propose a new, specific deadline. This maintains trust and allows others to adjust. The ripple, creating a culture of execution. When you consistently model and demand this level of decisiveness, you initiate a cultural transformation. Meetings gain a reputation for being productive. People arrive more prepared because they know it will lead to concrete outcomes. Trust increases because commitments are kept. The organizational energy shifts from circular discussion to forward momentum. This is the ultimate expression of self-development in the meeting room. The evolution from being a person of ideas to being a person of action. It is the embodiment of the John Burroughs quote. Your greatest intention, your brilliant blueprint, your deep listening, your courageous argument, is worthless unless it culminates in a deed. The decisive edge is the tool that carves that intention into the stone of reality. It requires courage to end the discussion and decide. It requires discipline to nail down the specifics. It requires integrity to hold yourself and others to your word. But in doing so, you cease to be merely a participant in meetings. You become a creator of outcomes, a builder of momentum, and a person whose words carry the weight of inevitable action. This is the edge that separates talk from achievement, and it is yours to wield. Chapter 6, The Leader's Chair. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves." Lao Tzu. We have navigated the inner terrain and mastered the mechanics. We have become self-aware architects, present participants, courageous conversationalists, and decisive finishers. Now, we ascend to the role that synthesizes all these capacities, not through title or authority, but through function and service, the facilitator. This chapter is not solely for those who run meetings by designation, but for anyone who chooses in a given moment to sit in the leader's chair. This chair is not a throne of command. It is a seat of stewardship. Its occupant is not the primary source of ideas, but the curator of a process that allows the group's best ideas to emerge. They are not the star of the show, but the director, or perhaps the stage manager, ensuring the set, the lighting, and the cues are perfectly aligned so that the actors, the participants, can deliver their finest performance. To facilitate is to exercise leadership in its most selfless and potent form, leadership as service. It is the ultimate test and training ground for self-actualization, for it demands that you subjugate your ego to the health of the system and the success of others. Facilitation, as an act of self-transcendence. The first and most profound shift required to occupy the leader's chair is a shift in identity. Your success is no longer measured by how much you spoke, how smart you sounded, or whether your personal idea was chosen. Your success is measured by one metric alone. Did the group achieve its desired outcome with clarity, commitment, and a sense of collective ownership? This is an act of self-transcendence. It requires ego suspension. You must care more about the quality of the outcome than the source of the idea. Your role is to be a conduit, not a contributor of content. Neutrality as a practice. While you may have a stake in the topic, your facilitation must be a fair, balanced process. You are a guardian of equitable airtime, a referee of productive conflict, not an advocate for a predetermined conclusion. Comfort with silence. You must resist the facilitator's greatest temptation, to fill the void. The space after a challenging question is where deep thinking happens. Holding that silence, calmly and confidently, is a leadership act that signals patience and respect for the group's process. In this role, you practice the highest form of the disciplines from prior chapters. You must be hyper-present to the room's energy. You must architect the process in real time. You must courageously intervene in dysfunction, and you must drive decisively toward closure. The facilitation toolkit, serving the process. The effective facilitator is a master of subtle, process-oriented tools. Their power lies not in dictating content, but in shaping the container and guiding the flow. The art of the question. The facilitator's primary tool is not the statement, but the question. And not just any question, open, generative, and clarifying questions. 2. Open thinking. What's one possibility we haven't considered yet? 2. Deepen analysis. What assumptions are we making here that might be worth testing? 2. Manage dominance. Thank you for that, Sam. I'd like to hear from someone who hasn't spoken yet. Maria, what's your reaction? 2. Synthesize. We've heard several strands. What's the common thread connecting these concerns? These questions are the steering wheel of the conversation, gently guiding it without controlling its destination. The power of visual capture. The facilitator is the group's scribe, making thinking visible in real time. Using a whiteboard, shared document, or digital board, they capture key points, ideas, and decisions. This serves 3 crucial purposes. It validates contributions. I hear you, and your idea is worth recording. It creates a shared memory. Here is the territory we've covered. And it allows the group to literally see their thoughts coalescing into patterns and conclusions. Energy management. A facilitator is a somatic barometer, attuned to the room's emotional and energetic state. When energy lags, they might introduce a quick, relevant poll, suggest a 60-second silent reflection, or physically move people to a whiteboard. When tension rises, they might name it. I'm sensing some heat on this topic, which is great. It means we care. Let's make sure we're focusing that energy on the problem. Or call for a structured round where each person speaks without interruption. When focus fragments, they gently but firmly pull the group back to the desired outcome. I notice we're moving into implementation details. Let's first lock in the core decision on principle. Can we return to the question on the board? The dance of divergence and convergence. The master facilitator understands the natural rhythm of creativity and decision-making. They intentionally create phases. Divergent phase. Let's get every idea on the table. No evaluation yet. Here, they encourage wild ideas, protect fragile contributions, and withhold judgment. Convergent phase. Now let's look at what we have. Which of these best meets our criteria? Here, they guide the group toward evaluation, clustering, and selection. Knowing when to open the field and when to narrow the path is the essence of guiding a group from confusion to clarity. Handling disruption with grace. The facilitator as peacekeeper. The leader's chair is also the hot seat when dynamics turn difficult. The facilitator is the first responder to disruption. For the tangent taker. That's an interesting point, David. To make sure we cover the core agenda, let me park that idea in our parking lot section here, and we can return to it if time allows. For the interrupter. Hold that thought, Alex. I want to make sure Lisa finishes her point first. Lisa, please continue. For the silent observer. Before we move on, I'd like to get a perspective we haven't heard. Jordan, you have experience in this area. What's your take? These interventions are not punishments. They are the enforcement of the group's agreed-upon process, ensuring safety and equity for all. The inner state of the facilitator. Calm, confidence, and care. Your internal state as a facilitator is the single greatest determinant of the group's experience. If you are anxious, the room will feel unsafe. If you are rigid, the room will feel constrained. If you are distracted, the room will lose focus. You must cultivate an inner state of calm confidence. This comes from thorough preparation, knowing your process blueprint cold, and from a deep, genuine care for the people and the outcome. When the group senses that you are calmly holding the space for their success, they relax, trust the process, and engage fully. Your breathing becomes the room's pacemaker. Your centeredness becomes the group's anchor. The ultimate reward, the ownership of the many. Return to the wisdom of Lao Tzu. The pinnacle of facilitation is achieved when the group leaves not saying, "What a great facilitator," but saying, "We did great work. We figured that out." The facilitator's fingerprints are invisible on the content, yet their handiwork is evident in the clean, elegant, and owned outcome. By choosing to sit in the leader's chair, you engage in the most advanced form of self-development the meeting dojo offers. You are no longer just working on your own skills. You are developing the capacity to elevate an entire system. You practice supreme empathy, strategic thinking, real-time problem-solving, and selfless service. You learn to lead not from a place of authority, but from a place of profound utility. And in doing so, you discover that the true power of the leader's chair is that it is always available. You do not need to wait for an invitation or a promotion. In your next meeting, you can choose in any moment to facilitate, to ask the clarifying question, to capture the key point, to gently guide the conversation back on track. You can choose to serve the process, and in that service, you will find yourself leading. This is the final integration, your personal development becoming the catalyst for collective achievement. The chair is not assigned, it is assumed by the willing. Chapter 7, The Ripple. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Mahatma Gandhi. Our journey has taken us inward, through the mirror of self-awareness, and outward, through the architecture of intention, presence, courage, decisiveness, and service. We have moved from personal observation to personal mastery within the container of the meeting. Now, we arrive at the final, expansive horizon of our exploration, the ripple. This chapter transcends the mechanics of a single gathering to illuminate the profound, transformative legacy you create when you consistently apply these principles. It is about the transition from mastering meetings to, quite simply, mastering your corner of the world. Your personal evolution is not a private event. It is a resonant frequency. When you change the way you show up in the most ubiquitous ritual of organizational life, you do not merely improve an hour on a calendar. You emit a signal that recalibrates the culture around you. This is the silent, powerful agenda behind every conscious meeting. The creation of a virtuous cycle where individual discipline becomes collective habit, psychological safety becomes the default, and extraordinary results become the norm. From personal practice to cultural protocol, consider the initial, isolated act. You, once the ghost, now arrive 2 minutes early, centered and prepared. You, once hesitant, now voice a clarifying question that unlocks a stalled discussion. You, frustrated by inaction, now close a meeting by succinctly summarizing decisions and action items. In the moment, these are simply better meeting behaviors. But to those around you, they are signals. They signal that preparation is valued. They signal that clarity is possible. They signal that someone cares enough to ensure time is not wasted. Like a stone dropped into a still pond, the first ripple expands. A colleague, noticing your calm preparedness, begins to spend 5 minutes reviewing the agenda themselves. Another, relieved by the clear summary, starts modeling it in their own meetings. The new participant, witnessing your courageous question, feels safer to offer their own. You have not mandated a new policy. You have demonstrated a new possibility. This is how cultures truly change, not through top-down decrees, but through middle-out and bottom-up modeling. The meeting, as the most repeated and visible collaborative ritual, is the perfect carrier wave for this cultural signal. Your personal practice slowly, inevitably, becomes an informal protocol. The way we do things here begins to bend toward the standard you are living. The virtuous cycle, the 5 cultural transformations. When the principles of this book are embodied by even a critical few, they catalyze a series of interconnected cultural shifts, creating a self-reinforcing loop of excellence. From time spending to value creation, as meetings become consistently purposeful and decisive, the collective mindset shifts. The dread of another meeting transforms into an expectation of another opportunity to make progress. Time in meetings is no longer seen as a tax on real work, but as the very engine of it. This reframes work itself from a series of solitary tasks to a dynamic, collaborative value creation process. From political theater to psychological safety. When you, as a facilitator or participant, consistently separate ideas from identity and reward candor with curiosity, you drain the swamp of office politics. People learn that their worth is not tied to being right in every discussion, but to contributing to the best outcome. This fosters a culture of learning, where mistakes are data and dissent is a gift. Innovation cannot thrive without this bedrock of safety, and it is built one courageous conversation at a time. From authority-driven to insight-driven, in a culture of present listening and rigorous debate, the best idea wins, not the loudest or highest-paid idea. Hierarchical deference gives way to a meritocracy of thought. A junior analyst with killer data learns they can, and should challenge a VP's gut feeling, provided it's done respectfully and in service of the outcome. This unleashes the organization's full intellectual capital, engaging people not just as hired hands, but as valued thinkers. From activity to accountability, a decisive edge culture breeds a powerful, positive form of accountability. When, who, what, by when is the universal closing ritual. A social contract of reliability is woven. People know their commitments are seen and valued. They also know that lapses will be noted, not with blame, but with a curious inquiry into what support is needed. This creates a culture of follow-through, where promises are kept and momentum is sustained, building immense trust. From transactional exchanges to relational bonds, the present participant and the serving facilitator create something deeper than efficiency. They create connection. When people feel truly heard, when their time is respected, when they collectively struggle through a tough problem and emerge with a solution, bonds are formed. The meeting becomes a place of human collaboration, not just task coordination. This relational capital is the glue that holds teams together through stress, and the lubricant that makes all future collaborations smoother. The leader without title, your ripple is legacy. This cultural reshaping is your ultimate legacy as a practitioner of meeting mastery. You become what leadership expert Robin Sharma calls a leader without a title. Your influence is not derived from positional power, but from the power of your example. You may never run the company, but you can run your meetings, and by extension, shape your team's culture with the wisdom of a CEO, the empathy of a coach, and the precision of a surgeon. Your ripple extends beyond the professional sphere. The skills honed in this dojo are life skills. The deep listening practiced in a boardroom improves your conversations with your partner. The courageous confrontation mastered in a project review gives you the tools for difficult talks with a friend. The decisiveness applied to action items helps you commit to personal goals. The self-awareness gleaned from the mirror makes you a more reflective, intentional person in all your roles. You are not just developing a professional skill set. You are developing a human operating system for integrity, effectiveness, and connection. The invitation to cast the first stone. The journey of 1,000 meetings begins with a single, conscious choice. The culture of your organization will not change because you complain about bad meetings. It will change because you decide to run a good one. You have been equipped with the mirror, the blueprint, the disciplines, and the tools. The invitation of this final chapter is to step fully into your agency as a cultural architect. Start small, but start definitively. In your very next meeting, be the first to articulate the desired outcome if no one else does. Be the one who listens so deeply that you can synthesize two opposing views. Be the one who, before everyone disperses, says, "So, to confirm our next steps, I'll do X by Friday, and Sam, you're on for Y by Monday, correct?" Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for a title. The leader's chair, as we have learned, is not assigned. It is assumed. The power to create the ripple resides in your very next interaction. The meeting room was never the villain in our story. It was always the arena. It presented us daily with a choice: to drift or to steer, to consume or to create, to hide or to lead. By choosing mastery, you reclaim that time, not just for productivity, but for human flourishing. You transform the mundane into the meaningful. So go ahead, cast your stone. Let your ripples of clarity, respect, courage, and decisiveness spread. Watch as they intersect with others, creating an interference pattern of positive change. You may never know the full extent of the wave you set in motion, but you will feel its purpose. You will have become the change, and in doing so, you will have written the most powerful agenda of all, a blueprint for a better way of working and of being. The meeting is adjourned. The work, your great work, has just begun.